Hello everyone, welcome to a new video today. This is a flip through. This is part 2 of my Chicago album because it's now done, which is fantastic. So when I left off, I had finished Hamilton. Now we're moving on to the next morning, so here we go. This is when I was leaving Greektown and I was going out to find Oz Park. That is a park in Chicago that has statues from the main characters of The Wizard of Oz. And I had heard about it through a friend, and so I thought, okay, I've got to find this when I'm there. So I was heading out for that. You can see on this page I used a rubber embellishment. This is from Allie Edwards. And I don't remember if that was part of her travel release or just a regular release. I'm thinking maybe travel, but it worked perfectly with what I was wearing and the blue and all the statues and everything. So I thought, okay, I have to include that. So that made it in there. And let's see, on this page, this is from Cocoa Daisy, I think. Pretty sure it's from Cocoa Daisy. And then here I had found Oz Park, and so you can see that I found Dorothy right away. And this was an interesting layout along with the next one because I had a sticker sheet that had really cool Wizard of Oz stickers. So I kind of had to make my own cards for this, which was fine. I mean, obviously this one was already there, but I ended up making a lot of them. So this one I had just found some cool pattern paper, and I think this paper is also from Cocoa Daisy, if I'm not mistaken. And so I just built my own. So a lot of these stickers came from that same sheet, all of these. And it was kind of nice that they had these circles and ovals in there because then I could mix and match and it looked like it went together, which is awesome. And then they also had these little label kind of things here. I thought, well, that's perfect. I can put a staple in each one. And then I just did vellum here. So the only thing I don't like is you can see the back of the photo a little bit. It says Kodak Moments through there, but if you don't look too hard, it's not that noticeable. But I did use vellum, and that's a risk that you take with vellum, so I'm willing to live with it. On this side, we have the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion. So over here, it was Dorothy and the Scarecrow and Toto. And then we have the Lion and the Tin Man. And these were super fun to just walk around the park. It's not huge, but it's pretty good size for being in the middle of the Lincoln Park area. And it's near a school, so there were kids coming and going. It was a very nice little park. So here's another one. I had to, actually all three of these I built. This was obviously a card that came this way, but then I had to fill it with something, and I thought this worked perfectly. This one I just used a scrap of yellow paper that I had in my stash, and again, made my own. And this one was just a spare piece of white cardstock, and it worked out well. And then I did a little bit of gold Heidi Shine splattering on here to bring it all together. And for this layout, I have these sticky rhinestone patterns, and I probably got those at a scrapbook convention 5 to 8 years ago. I'm guessing somewhere in there because I haven't been to one in a while. And they were all the rage then. And I have so many that I was like, you know what, that's it. I'm going to try to use them. So I used them in 3 different places on this layout. So I'm pleased about that, trying to use some of my stuff. And this was still just walking through Lincoln Park. I love that area. So I just had kind of random photos from the houses and things. And then here is a 3x12 insert. This is a new thing I've tried where I had bought some Becky Higgins page protectors in different styles that I liked, but they only came in 12x12. But the left-hand side had designs that I wanted. So I cut that off. Well, then I was left with the other side. What am I going to do with that? So I actually cut down a bunch of these and made 3x12s and just punched my own holes, and it worked out very well. So I've got one of those here. So if you're looking for ideas for specialty inserts maybe that you can't find, that's an idea to try. And so this was my lunch that I had that day. I ate kind of early because I wanted to get through the park and then eat before I went over to the zoo and the conservatory because I knew that was going to be several hours and I probably wouldn't have time to stop in between. So it worked out. It worked out well. I have several pieces of chipboard here. And then this was walking towards the zoo, just along my way, some interesting things I saw. And then I made it to the zoo, and it was so freaking hot this day. Oh my God, I was regretting my decision. I was like, I should have done inside stuff because it was really hot already. But I persevered. Went around the zoo as much as I could anyway. And I have to say, no offense to anybody who might be watching that's from the Chicago area, I was quite disappointed in the zoo. In all my times in Chicago, I'd never gone. And so I thought this time I'm going to make it there. Since I know I'm going to be in Lincoln Park, I'm going to be close, I'll go. And I don't know if it was because it was so hot, but hardly any animals were out in their exhibits on display. And the ones that were just really were not that active. And so I don't know if that's a normal thing or if it was the weather or what, but I don't know. It's a good thing I didn't pay to get in, because if I had, I think I would have been highly disappointed. And so I just kind of, meandered around and stuff, but I really didn't see a whole lot because there wasn't a lot to see. So it was okay, but I don't think I would go out of my way to do it again. And so I did journal about that over here. One of the cool things, though, is that in their gift shop, they have some great stuff for scrapping. So I found a set. I think there were 6 of them because there were 2 I didn't use. 2 or 3. But it's a set of pins, buttons that you could buy, and it was like $3.95. It wasn't that expensive. So I just took the backs off and I used them as flair here. And so that was a cheap embellishment I was able to get that was specific to the zoo. So at least that part, worked out pretty well. And then the conservatory. And I think I mentioned this when I was doing the process video. These 3x3 sheet protectors, these are hard for me to use. I have to get pretty creative. You would think it's not that different from a 3x4, but there's something about that square format that trips me up a little bit. So anything with a 3x3 was a challenge. I had one for Hamilton, and then I had one here. But I made it work. It all came together. But it was tough. I had to think a lot harder about it. And then over here, I just worked in some epoxy, and I worked in some puffy stickers. And I love flowers, so this one was pretty easy to put together. And after the conservatory, right just north of there is the Nature Museum. And I knew they had a butterfly habitat in there, and I love butterflies. So I thought, all right, I'll pay a few bucks to go in there. And so I did that, and luckily it had air conditioning. And I so needed it by then. I was just done with being out in the sun and the heat. So I did pay, it was $9. I saved the receipt. It was $9 to go in there, and it's very small. I thought maybe it was going to be bigger. So I didn't spend a huge amount of time in there because I made the rounds pretty quickly. But they did have some great butterflies in there. I captured some great photos. I didn't have any land on me this time. Sometimes when I've gone to different places, I've had them land on me, and they did not. But I still saw plenty, which was nice. And then when I was done, I did actually explore the rest of the museum a little bit. It's definitely geared more towards kids, I think. So if you're going to go there, if you're visiting Chicago and you have kids, that might be a fun place to go. So by that point, it was about 5, I think, 4 or 5. Oh, it must have been about 4 that I was done. And so I was just done. I'd had it for the day. I'd been out since the early morning, and I was done. And so then I just put in some photos of my path of how I had to get from there to the Airbnb where I was staying. Because the first night I stayed in a hostel downtown. Well, not downtown, but in Greektown. And then the second night I wanted to be out of the city a little bit. And so I went to a different location. But in order to get there, I had to do 2 buses and a train. So it definitely took a little bit more work. But it ended up being worth it. I just really needed to be out of the craziness of the heart of the city. And then I also included how much I walked that day. So I just took a screenshot from my iPhone that showed I did 5.7 miles. It shows my number of steps. And so I thought that was pretty fun just to show what all I did that day. And then this is just a little bit of the inside of the Airbnb. It was a basement apartment, so that's where I stayed. And I talked about the fact that I think I was actually a little dehydrated because I got very lightheaded. Once I was in there after about a half an hour, I got very lightheaded. So I had to just chug water, and I took a cold shower, and that helped. But I thought I had done well with water during the day, but I don't think I did. And so that was the end of that day. I didn't do anything else that night other than I just stayed in and worked, read a little bit, and went to bed. That was it. So not an exciting Friday night. And so here's another 3x12 insert, and this just shows a little bit more of my Airbnb that morning before I left. And then again, I like transportation shots, so I put these in of getting myself back downtown. I was able to take the bus again to where it hooked up with the blue line, and I was able to take the blue line downtown. And I'm most familiar with the blue line. Every time I've gone, that's pretty much what I've done, and so I kind of like it when I can hook up to that because I know exactly how it works and where it goes, so I find that helpful. And so here's downtown. I had this cool 3D Skyline sticker, so I wanted to use that. I got to work that in there. And then I just have some random shots from downtown because the buildings are so gorgeous. I wanted to make sure that I put those in there. So I just talked a little bit about my plan of where I meant to go, and then these were just things that I saw along the way. So I was hungry by then, and so I decided I was just going to drop in quickly to Dunkin' Donuts. There was one right near my train stop, so that worked out. Then it was on to the Rookery, and I wanted it to be very fancy, this page, because that building is very fancy. So I did a bunch of sequins down here to match the brochure, and then I just sealed the pocket with my fuse tool. And then here's the actual building itself. So this is what it looks like on the corner. It's at the corner of Adams and LaSalle. And I wanted fancy foil paper because this building needs that. And as you can see from the inside, it's highly ornate. And they were actually setting up for a wedding the day that I was there. So I had to quickly go in and look around. They were very nice and let me in, but you can see why somebody would have a wedding there. It's gorgeous. And here are the rest of those photos. And then after the Rookery, and you can see I used some chipboard and little pennants or flags here. After the Rookery, I headed over to the downtown library because, again, all the times I'd been to Chicago, I knew it was there, but I'd never gone in. So I decided I was going to do that this time. So these are just some shots from the outside, which is lovely, but the inside, OMG. Again, if you're ever in Chicago, do it. And I'm a book person, I'm a library person, so for me, this was right up my alley. So I have a bunch of shots from the inside. And this was one of the last process videos I did. So I'm sure if you've been following along, this might look familiar. So just did a little bit of flair. Kept this one pretty simple. Didn't do a whole lot. Little stamping, little flair. That was kind of it. And then on this one, they had an exhibit there. It was an art installation. And it was featured or focused on the Vietnam War. And my dad served during the Vietnam era. So to me, this was a very poignant exhibit or installation to see. So I really took my time looking at that. I probably spent the most time there, as opposed to exploring the whole rest of the library. And so I wanted it to be very kind of American and patriotic looking. So I made that work with some digital cards that I had. And then some lovely sparkly stars. You can't go wrong with those. And then when I left the library, the stop that I needed for the train was right there, literally right outside the door of the library. I could just walk up to the platform, jump on the train and go. And I took the orange line. So I wanted to put that in there. And then I had these two cards that had different things in other languages. So I had Spanish and Italian. So I thought it was fun to kind of feature those together. And then I had made this. I put some more sequins in there and sealed the pocket. I used my venture card. So that's what you use to take the L everywhere. So I wanted to include that in there. So I made sure that made it in. And then here I am at the airport. It was my first time flying out of Midway. I've always either taken Amtrak or I have flown in and out of O'Hare. So it was first time at Midway and I really liked it. I think I prefer it to O'Hare. It was just easier. Train ride was super easy. The airport was easy to navigate. It was less busy, fewer people, just wasn't as crazy as O'Hare. So I really quite enjoyed that. And then here's my final page, just some artwork that was sort of in the entryway from the train into the airport, and a little copy of my boarding pass from my app. And that was it. I was on my way home. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me put together these layouts and seeing the flip through of everything, how it looks when it's done. And I hope you'll continue to watch more videos. Thanks for watching, everyone.